Have you ever encountered this situation? Your thin and light laptop was incredibly fast when you first bought it, but as soon as you edit a video or open a game, the fan starts taking off, sounding as loud as a hairdryer. Then the computer starts lagging and performance drops because it's too hot. For a long time, for the sake of cooling, we've had to choose between thinness and performance. But the revolutionary tech we're talking about today might completely end this frustration. It's called AirJet. It's claimed to be the world's first active solid-state cooling chip. Simply put, it was invented by a company called Frore Systems. You can imagine it as a thin slice, only 2.8 millimeters thick. It's about as thin as two credit cards stacked together. The coolest part is that there are absolutely no rotating fan blades inside. While it's active cooling, it's solid state. It uses ultrasonic frequencies invisible to the naked eye, vibrating at high speeds. You might wonder if that membrane is just vibrating up and down. Why does the air follow orders and blow in one direction, instead of just creating turbulence? There are two keys hidden inside. First, it utilizes synthetic jet technology. The membranes vibrate at ultra-high frequencies, working with the internal microcavity design to let air in but not out, forcing it to eject only from the designated nozzles. You can think of it like whizzing, even though your lungs are just contracting and exhaling. But because you've narrowed the opening of your lips, the airflow becomes a powerful, directional fountain. This isn't just random shaking. It's a precise fluid control show. Speaking of data, AirJets. The most amazing feature is that it can generate 1,750 pascals PA of back pressure. Many people ask, at what distance was this measured? Actually, this 1,750 PA isn't measuring how far it blows, but rather its thrust. Traditional laptop fans usually have an air pressure of only 50 to 100 pascals. AirJet is over 10 times stronger. Why does it need to be this powerful? Because in extremely thin and light laptops, the internal space is unimaginably small. The resistance to airflow is immense. A traditional fan in such a narrow gap is like a fan with no air. It simply can't move the air at all. But AirJet is like a high-pressure water gun. No matter how dense the cooling fins or how cramped the space, it can forcefully push the hot air out. AirJet has already solved the dust problem that everyone fears. You might think, with such high pressure, would it jam dust into the cooling fins like a plug? The answer is, not only is it most proof, it even reverses automatically. First, because of its strong air pressure, the airflow has powerful penetrating force, making it difficult for dust to settle. What's even more impressive is that AirJet has a built-in self-cleaning mode. When the system detects increased resistance, the membranes adjust their vibration patterns to blow the air in reverse. It's like your vacuum cleaner suddenly becoming a leaf blower, blasting away the dust stuck on the filter. This means devices equipped with AirJet can theoretically be completely maintenance-free. Imagine! Future MacBook Airs or handhelds like the Steam Deck won't need bulky fans, yet their performance can rival pro models. And they'll be silent and most free. Although AirJet's cost is still relatively high, I truly believe this is the biggest breakthrough in cooling technology in the last decade. If you could buy a high-performance computer that is completely silent and as thin as paper, would you be willing to pay extra for it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. See you next time. Bye-bye.